Hi, I am Alok as JHA and welcome to my YouTube channel. We are discussing modern India and we are trying to cover modern India through multiple choice questions. It's our third video, so it's a series. And in the last two videos, we tried to cover disintegration of the Mughal Empire and rise of autonomous states. So gradually we are moving towards our goal, correct? So today what we are going to discuss? Today we are going to discuss advent of Europeans. Fine. So what we will do? We will first create a background. We will try to revise whatever materials you have, whatever you have studied, and then we can go for 10 questions. So ready for revision first and then we can go for practice. Fine. So let's start. So we are taking up advent of Europeans, correct? Advent of Europeans. Fine. And in advent of Europeans we will be taking Portuguese, Dutch, then British, French, and briefly we will be taking Danes and Swedish. Fine. So we will be starting from 1498. You must be knowing 1498 Portuguese. Then we have, right, chronologically if you see, the East India Company, we have 1600. Then we have Dutch Company in 1602, right, Dutch Company. Then we have Danes Company 1616. Then we have, right, French Company 1664, French Company. And then we have Swedish Company 1731, Swedish Company. So these are companies and they started coming after 15th century. But why they started coming after 15th century? What was the reason? So 15th 16th century period was the period of what you call geographical explorations. So it was, you can say, very important in the context of Renaissance and its impact. So what exactly happened and what led to geographical explorations and why they started looking towards East? Why Europeans were interested in East? Why Europeans were interested in new route? Because the old route was closed, land route was closed. So the story started from fall of Constantinople by Ottoman Turks in 1453. So the real beginning of this story is 1453. They were interested in new route because now Arabs controlled that trade and they were interested in Indian goods, Asian goods. So they started searching for an alternative route. Fine. So first we will briefly, right, revise everything, right, and then we can take up questions. Fine. Right. So see, first you have to remember that the story started from 1453. I told you in 1453 Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks and routes closed, land routes closed, right? There was eagerness all over Europe for adventurous sea voyages, geographical discoveries started, right? They wanted to reach the unknown corners of the East. And fortunately, Portugal developed as a leader, right? So development of Portugal as a leader, fine. And Pope Nicholas V motivated Prince Henry the Navigator. You must be knowing him. And then there was a treaty also between Portugal and Spain, what you call Treaty of Tordesillas, right? So there was a clear-cut division. Now Portugal started moving towards east and Spain started moving towards west. So there was a Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. Correct? Geographical exploration started. Portuguese started sponsoring it. Henry the Navigator and others, they played very important role. And because of their support, you have in 1487, Bartholomew Diaz. Diaz, you can remember. He finally reached the southern tip of Africa. So great success. So the story started from Diaz. 1487, he reached the southern tip of Africa. And after that, you have the real beginning, who came in 1498, Vasco da Gama. Correct? So we have the next development. We have arrival of Vasco da Gama, right? In 1498, arrival of Vasco da Gama, and he came with 3 ships, and he came with 170 men, and he came with the support of Gujarati pilot named Abdul Majid. All these information you have to remember. I hope you all have this kind of information, that in 1498, Vasco da Gama reached Calicut, and there was a grand welcome, grand reception for Vasco da Gama by the Hindu ruler of Calicut, Jamorin or Samuthiri. So it was a good news for him that Hindu Raja welcomed him, but Arabs who controlled the trade, they were not ready to welcome, they were not ready to support. So there was a clash between Portuguese and Arabs. Fine. So Vasco da Gama played very important role, right? And he had to, you can say, fight with Arab traders, but he managed it, and he tried to monopolize the trade, and this was not acceptable to the Arabs. And Vasco da Gama returned Portugal with huge profit, 60 times more profit, right? So Vasco da Gama, and Vasco da Gama returned, and finally you have, because of the success of Vasco da Gama, we have Cabral. Naturally, because Vasco da Gama's visit was successful, so they sent Cabral. Cabral arrived in 1500. This date is also important for you. 1500. Cabral. And there was a clash with Arab merchants, so he seized a number of Arab merchant ships. Right? And then Vasco da Gama again came in 1501. Again came. And he set up a trading factory here. He had, you can say now, you can say conflict with the ruler of Calicut, Jamorin. So he started developing port. Cochin was the most important. Then after that, you have governor, right? Now they had the vision of establishing an empire. And the first governor was Francisco de Almeida. Remember, very important, Francisco de Almeida. Why Francisco de Almeida, you should remember? Because of his blue water policy. Blue water policy, right? Cartage system. They wanted to control the ocean, right? So the Portuguese wanted to become the master of Indian Ocean. That was the vision of Almeida. So Almeida, you can remember, very important governor, Almeida. And Almeida, right, was appointed governor in 1505 for 3-year term. Remember it. And he played very important role. He had to, right, fight with Muslim traders. He tried to destroy Muslim trade by, you can say, seizing Aden, Hormuz and Malacca. Correct? So he was very successful, established some fort also, Anjadiva, very important, Cochin, Cananor and Kilwa. So Almeida you can remember. Is that correct? So Vasco da Gama, then who? After Vasco da Gama, you have Cabral, then again Vasco da Gama, and then after Vasco da Gama, you have Francisco de Almeida. Fine, correct. Now, after that, what happened? Right, there was a clash in 1507, Portuguese versus combined Egyptian and Gujarati navies. And in this clash, Almeida's son was killed. Bad news for Almeida. But next year, Almeida managed and he defeated the two navies. After Almeida's success, you have the real founder of the Portuguese Empire. You must be knowing Albuquerque. Very important. Albuquerque. He succeeded Almeida. He was the real founder. Remember, he was the real founder. He was the real founder. His most important success was Goa, which he acquired from Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. So, Albuquerque is very important. He is the real founder because of his expansion, because of his policies, because of his administration. Right? So, Albuquerque acquired Goa from Sultan of Bijapur in 1510. This date is important. 1510. He was known for many new policies, like he was interfering in our society. He started convincing, right, his men to marry, right, with local girls. He tried to ban sati in Goa. These kind of policies you have to remember. Fine. So, after Albuquerque, the next governor was Nino da Cunha. Nino da Cunha became the governor in 1529 and he made Goa as the real capital, right? He made Goa as the main capital. So 1530, this is important. So Vasco da Gama, Cabral, then again Vasco da Gama, then the governor, first governor Almeida, blue water policy. After Almeida, you have the real founder Albuquerque. After Albuquerque, you have Nino da Cunha. So these are the names and right, you have to remember it. Fine. Correct. Now, during this period, there was an episode with Gujarat. Very popular story of Gujarat. That time actually Humayun wanted to control Gujarat and the ruler of Gujarat, right, wanted some help from Portuguese. They were ready to give them something. But when Humayun, right, actually withdrew from Gujarat, the relation between Bahadur Shah and the Portuguese deteriorated. Tension increased and there was a clash, right? And Portuguese opposed the moves of Bahadur Shah and they invited him for negotiation aboard a Portuguese ship. And it is said that on that ship, Bahadur Shah was killed. So in mysterious circumstances. So the Portuguese, now they were questioned. Now they were questioned because of their trade. Their decline started. This episode is a very important episode and eye-opener for Indians. Right? Then you will see the Cunha is also known for expanding his base in Bengal. This is also important. The Cunha also attempted to expand his base in Bengal. So this you have to remember. And gradually after Cunha, you will see the decline. They could not develop their good relation with Mughals. So what was their relation with Mughals? Just see, right? Sometimes they can ask question on them also, that what was the relation with Mughal? They had good relation with Akbar. They were invited to Fatehpur Sikri. They participated in Ibadat Khana discussions, right? You must remember Aqua Viva and Montserrat, these two names. Fine. There were some other, priests who visited Akbar's court, Xavier, Pinheiro. But during the period of Jahangir, the relation deteriorated, right? So in 1613, the Portuguese offended Jahangir by capturing Mughal ship. So relationship was not good during Jahangir period. Initially there was good relation, but after some time, because of this incident, relationship deteriorated. During the Shah Jahan's period, relationship, right, was not good. And one issue, what was the issue? Right, they seized two slave girls of Mumtaz Mahal. So the relationship with Mughal started deteriorating, and they started losing their base in India. Because Mughals, if they are not supporting you, you are not going to, right, broaden your base. Fine. Then Shah Jahan ordered the Bengal governor Qasim Khan to take action against Portuguese, and then there was siege of Hooghly. So their relationship with Mughal, their relationship with Marathas was not improving, it was deteriorating, correct? So there was decline of Portuguese, right? So there was a fight for Surat also, Swali, right? This battle is also sometime asked, right? Then Dutch competition was also there. Dutch started winning all the Portuguese fort on the Malabar coast. So the Portuguese, bad days for Portuguese, decline, correct? Now, how they decline? Because the perception, they earned notoriety by, right, as sea pirates. Their religious policies was not accepted. The discovery of Brazil diverted their attention, and then Marathas also started capturing. Remember, Marathas captured Salsette and Basin in 1739 from the Portuguese. So gradually there was decline of Portuguese. Fine. And now their competitors were Dutch. Dutch started replacing, they started capturing their factories. So what was the contribution of Portuguese? Sometimes there can be a question on them, even in preliminary examination. So Portuguese, they were known for their military contribution, their cultural contributions. They introduced some crops also, right? You must be knowing all this, fine. So contribution of Portuguese, military innovation, then you can say the use of castled prow and stern, then art of silversmith and goldsmith, right? And I told you that some crops also, right, they introduced. Then one more governor you can remember. They have asked one question on one more governor, right? So you can always, right, remember this name, Alfonso de Souza, because during this period, the first Jesuit priest, Francis Xavier, visited. This was asked in UPSC, right? So this you have to remember. Is it fine? So I just provided you a background, right, for Portuguese. Now come to Dutch, right? So who started replacing Portuguese? Dutch, right? And when Dutch established their company in 1602, who was the first Dutchman who reached in that area? Do you know that? Who was the first Dutchman? And they established later a company called VOC, right? So who was the first Dutchman? Cornelis de Houtman, H-O-U-T, Houtman. Cornelis de Houtman was the first Dutchman to reach India in 1596. And in 1602, they established Dutch India Company. And their first factory was in Masulipatam. Fine. Their first factory was in Masulipatam. Then their second factory was, right, at Petapulli, they say. Then after that, they captured Negapatnam. And then their headquarter became Pulikat. This is important. Their headquarter became Pulikat. This is important. Remember it, near Madras, north of Madras. They started minting their gold coins called pagoda. Then they started establishing other factories like Surat, Bimlipatnam, Karikal, Chinsura, Baranagar. And they had some forts also, like in Chinsura, Gustavus Fort, right? Even in, you can say, Pulikat, there was a fort. So Baranagar, Kasim Bazar, Balasore, Megapatnam, Cochin, all these areas you have, right? Remember Cochin also, Portuguese also had some factory, and Dutch also. And then when they started expanding, they had to fight with British, right? So in the next video, I will tell you the story of how British came and the French came. So now Dutch had to fight with British, and they committed one mistake. In 1623 in Indonesia, in Amboyana, they killed some Englishmen, some Japanese also. And this Amboyana massacre led to what? very complex situation, deterioration of relation between Dutch and British Amboina massacre. Right. So Amboina massacre is important. Took place in Indonesia. Dutch killed 10 Englishmen. After that, both parties came to a compromise, but there was, right, limited trade. Right now, Dutch started confining themselves to Indonesia, Spice Island. So that was a gradual, withdrawal of Dutch from India. But they continued, right? They continued after that compromise also, and they changed their headquarter from Pulicat to Negapattinam. This also you have to remember. In 1690, the Dutch headquarters were transformed, and finally, when the final end of Dutch in Battle of Bedra or Battle of Hooghly in 1759 in Bengal, we will be taking Bengal separately. Story of Bengal. So there I will tell you what is the importance of Bedra. So that was the end of Dutch. So these are some information, and this background we are doing, and I hope all this, right, is helpful for you. Now, on the basis of this background, now we can go for practice session. It was revision session. Now we can go for practice session. Correct? Now, come to the practice session. Right? You just try to tell me the answer. Right? You just try to tell me the answer of this question. Can you see the question? Right? Fine. See the question. Consider the following. Vasco da Gama's success made Portuguese to send 1200 men with 13 vessels under Pedro Alvarenga Cabral. I told you, after Vasco da Gama came Cabral with 13 vessels. So this is correct. Then in 1502, Gama visited Calicut for the second time with a fleet of 20 vessels. Yes, he came. Right, 1501 he came, and then 1502 he visited Calicut, correct. Before he returned to Portuguese, he established a factory in Cochin and a prison at Kannur. Suppose this kind of a statement, when you see, you would be slightly confused, but I hope some of you are reading, Tamil, right, Tamil Nadu text. So this kind of information is given there, not in your popular spectrum, but this kind of information is given there. So probably in coming days, this kind of question can be asked. So all the three statements are correct. So answer would be D. Correct? Fine. Now, next, which of the following factors contributed significantly to the early success of the Portuguese in establishing their dominance in the Indian Ocean region during the late 15th and early 16th century? See, right, there is a trend of lengthy questions. So you have to develop, that approach, that how you can handle this kind of lengthy question. These lengthy questions are not difficult to handle. You can see one important statement which is completely wrong. So there is no fear, right? There should not be any fear. Correct? Just see in this question. Political fragmentation in much of India and the Deccan. Yes, they got success because of the political fragmentation in India and the Deccan. Even Bahmani kingdom was, disintegrating, right? So this is correct. Then strong naval tradition and coordinated maritime resistance among Indian states. No, there was no coordination. There was no resistance. So this is wrong. Restrictions imposed by the Chinese emperor on long distance maritime. That was also a privilege for him. So this is correct. Superior organization and naval firepower of the Portuguese compared to Arab merchants. Yes, correct. This is also correct. So answer would be what? 1, 3 and 4. See, this statement is totally wrong. Anyone can see it and consider it wrong. So 1, 3 and 4. So B would be the answer. Now next. Consider the following statement regarding Portuguese in India. Right. The head of the administration was the viceroy who served for 5 years. No. 3 years. Wrong. Vedor da Fazenda. Right. Suppose if you have seen it in your spectrum, it is okay. Otherwise, it can surprise you. So it is given in the spectrum. So not very difficult to handle. So it is correct. Vedor the, right, the Fazenda was responsible for revenue and the cargoes and dispatch. This is correct. The Portuguese were the first Europeans to come and they were the last to leave. Correct? 1961. They left India in 1961. So this is also correct. So answer will be what? 2 and 3. B. Correct? So with me, I hope you are solving, and these all are right now just for your attention so that you can read, you can revise your material more properly. Fine? Correct. Now, next. With reference to the expansion of Portuguese power in India under Albuquerque, consider the following statement. Albuquerque captured Goa from Yusuf Adil Khan, the ruler of Bijapur, in 1510. You remember? It is correct. He encouraged intermarriage between Europeans and Indian women in Portuguese territories. Yes, correct. He conquered Malacca, thereby strengthening Portuguese control over the trade route between India and East Asia. Correct. Very important contribution. He successfully established Portuguese control over Aden. No, he could not. This was his one important, failure, you can say. Right? He wanted to, but he could not control. Right? He could not establish control over Aden. So answer will be what? 1, 2, and 3 on. See, if you are comfortable in this kind of question, you are prepared for your examination. If you are not comfortable with it, you can revise and you can, right, see this video again and again, right, so that you can at least know all this thing. All this information is from standard textbook, right? Fine. Right. Next. Consider the following events related to the Portuguese Empire in India. Occupation of Basin by Nino da Cunha, right? Then Portuguese acquisition of Daman. First contact between Portuguese and Mughal Emperor Akbar, right? So 1530s, 1540s, then 1570s, annexation of Portugal in 1580s, right? It would be in 70s, it would be in 80s. So if you know the story, you can easily handle it, right? So answer would be what? First in 1530s, occupation of Basin, then Portugal acquisition of Daman, then in 1570s, first contact between Portuguese and Mughal Emperor, and annexation of Portugal by Philip II of Spain, 1580s, right? So finally, 30s, 40s, 50s, 80s. So answer will be what? 1, 2, 3, 4. Answer will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So exact date not required, but if you have the idea that in this decade this happened, this decade in right this happened, you can think about it. Exact date probably not possible to remember. Okay? Fine. With reference to the impact of the Portuguese presence in India, consider the following statement. Right? Suppose if you don't have the information about the impact, this kind of question can be difficult. But these are given, right? So Roberto de Nobili, right? He is very important Portuguese and he played very important role. He is called father of Tamil prose. So fine. Henriques, he also played important role. He is called father of printing press. Very popular. Then introduction of gunpowder and superior artillery gave European. This is also correct. The encouragement of intermarriage between European and Indians contributed to the emergence of Eurasian community. This is simple. This is correct. So all correct, right? So not only spectrum, even Tamil Nadu text, right? Some areas can be very helpful. So if you are not comfortable with this kind of statement, you can read Tamil Nadu text. I will be telling you that this kind of question is there in this book, right? So spectrum is okay, but beyond spectrum also some area you have to read from Tamil Nadu text, some area from Shekhar Bandhopadhyay, some area from B.L. Grover, right? I will be adding all this thing, right? So it would be helpful for you, correct? So all correct. Now next. With reference to the Dutch expansion, consider the following statement. The Dutch East India Company, which is called VOC, was established in 1602, correct, through the amalgamation of several Dutch trading companies, correct. The Dutch captured Malacca from the Portuguese in 1641, right, correct. The Dutch were successful in Spice Island, but they suffered reverses in India at the hands of Portuguese. No, not at the hands of Portuguese. This is wrong. At the hands of British. So 1 and 2 only, 1 and 2 only. Right, so absolutely correct, third statement, right, without doubt you can handle. Right. Next, the Amboina massacre, I already told you, Amboina massacre is regarded as significant event in the history of European rivalry in Asia. Consider the following statement regarding the event. It occurred in the Dutch controlled Spice Island of Southeast Asia. Correct, it is in Indonesia. English East India Company officials were accused of conspiring against the Dutch. Correct. The incident led to immediate expulsion of Portuguese from Goa. It has nothing to do with Portuguese. It is wrong. After this massacre, the Dutch began to restrict themselves to Malay archipelago and the English to the India. This is correct. So 1, 2 and 4. 1, 2 and 4. A. Right. So A would be the answer. Is it fine? So sometime in the big question, lengthy question, they can give you one simple statement. Generally in UPSC, you will see that. If you have idea about that, if you know about Amboina massacre, you can handle it. Correct. Now, consider the following pairs of European power. Right? This kind of question can be asked. I don't know whether you have prepared all these forts or not, but this kind of fort can be asked. Portuguese had one fort called Fort Emmanuel at Cochin. Portuguese had Fort St. Angelo at Cananor. Dutch Fort Geldria, very popular, at Pulicat. Dutch Fort Gustavus at Chinsura. Correct? All correct. These kind of forts also can be asked in UPSC. They have never asked. Right? So I hope you have prepared all these forts. Correct? Now, next. With reference to the entry of European power into India, which one of the following statement is not correct? Not correct. In 1487, Diaz of Portugal reached southernmost tip of Africa. Correct? Cape of Good Hope. Albuquerque adopted the blue water policy. No. Who adopted the blue water policy? Almeida. So this is right, not correct. Cartage system was a method used by Portuguese to extract money from Indian Ocean. Cartage system, permit. Right, this is correct. Albuquerque abolished Sati in Goa. This is simple. This is correct. So only choice here is what is wrong? B. B. Right, is wrong. So I hope now this section, Portuguese and Dutch, is prepared. Right. One more revision from your class notes, whatever class notes you have, whatever notes you have, you can easily consolidate it. Hope you are enjoying, right, our series, right? So thank you, and keep revising and keep practicing, right? Again, right, in the next video we will continue the next section. So thanks a lot for watching.